So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be reviewing what the DTS is, the decompression machine, what we're trying to accomplish, and exactly how to put a practice member down on it, and how that's actually going to roll. First thing I want to do is I want to talk about what we're looking to do. So what the decompression is that when somebody has a herniated disc, a disc bulge, what that means is that disc bulge has moved into a space that it's not supposed to be in. So what the traction machine does is, when we put a practice member in, is it's called axial decompression. Axial means along the axis. Decompression is when we're just pulling this up. And as you can see here, if you can see here, it actually opens up those spaces on this machine when I'm doing that. So what it's doing is when it pulls those joints apart. Now when I say pulls them apart, we're not really pulling them apart, right? What they're doing is they're just taking a little bit of the pressure off. And so what happens is it creates a negative pressure. Now what a negative pressure means is that anytime that you have a negative pressure, just like when you're drinking fluid out of a straw, what you'll see is you'll put a suction in your mouth, and that suction in your mouth, the decreased pressure inside your mouth, actually the liquid will go towards that because it's drawn to that, because now it's a higher pressure air will go to lower pressure. That's the way. Well, same thing with liquids, same thing with everything. So when you open up that space, what that is doing is it's two things. One, it's creating a negative pressure in the disc, and it's creating a safe, non-compressed area where that disc over time can function. So when we put a practice member on here, what it'll do is it'll slowly build up that decompression. It'll hold it, and then it relaxes down. Now it doesn't go all the way to zero, but it goes away to a certain point, and then it'll do that for a period of time, and then it will pull. Generally, it's I believe it's 30 seconds, then 10 seconds, 30 seconds, and then 10 seconds. Okay. It doesn't matter what the time frame is, as much as that it's just kind of milking that open. Okay. So that's really what it's designed to do. Typically, the care plan is about approximately 30 adjustments, or I'm sorry, not 30 adjustments, 30 sessions on the decompression. If a person comes in here with a hot disc, first we'll try just chiropractic, just adjusting. If they come back and they demonstrate that there's something that one, they have enough disc space that it will work, and two, that the adjusting alone hasn't been as effective as we had hoped, then it's possible to give. If I take all that information, I might say have them go on there. But usually it's about 30 adjustments is a typical care plan, or 30 sessions is a typical care plan. Okay. Okay. Normally we won't really see much of a difference until around the 15th treatment, and so right around 10, people are starting to, I don't see much difference. But that's how healing works, right? Healing is a process, and a process always takes what? Time, right? So when we come back here, when we set patients up, we're going to do a couple things, okay? Just so you know, we're just going to kind of go one way, and I'll show you how we do it, and then we'll just I'll show you how we do it, and we'll explain things as we go. Okay. So when you walk in the room, you've noticed that it's a little colder in here. Sometimes in the winter, we might have to put a space heater in this room. If we know it's going to be helpful if somebody comes in, we know they're coming in, we'll open up the door and we'll put the space heater in. We open up we can open up the door first thing in the morning, allow the heat to come in, and then when the space heater comes in, then we'll plug it in, close the door, and let this room heat up a little bit. So another thing is that the computer is always unplugged. So when you reach back, it's the top one, it's the black one. We want to unplug it. Just to show you here, as you see, what this does is the patient's going to lay down, head down this way, feet towards the machine here. So a couple things. When a patient lays down, this here is solid. This is what holds the practice member in position. So So when we set the practice member up, this is the constant, this is the spot that we want to make sure that the practice member is. So we'll fit the practice member to this, and then the bottom part we will pull up to the practice member. So that's going to go first, so we're going to set that over the top of it. Another thing is we want to make sure that this is in the center. If this is over here, it won't pull evenly. We want to make sure that this piece here is in the center. So we go as such. So that pillow comes up here. And what we'll do is, before we also want to make sure that the table is, want to make sure that the table is locked. Table's locked. And so as you saw, when the table is unlocked, this will actually pull open, right? And it's supposed to separate, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But we want to make, before the patient gets on it, we want to make sure that the table is in a locked position. Okay. So what we'll do is, I'm going to, Sam, you're going to be the practice member. Okay. And so I'm going to instruct you what to do. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you lay down here with your butt here and your head down on that pillow. So you're going to go just like this. You're going to sit, and if it's a person who has never done this before, you're going to demonstrate it. I'll have you sit here, lay like that, and then you're going to just lay straight back. Now it's important to note, if somebody has thick belts on, they're going to want to remove their belt. Say if there's a real thick sweatshirts on and jackets, that's going to have to come off. Okay? All right. So go ahead and do that. As she's laying there, I'm making sure that this hasn't shifted, right? As she's laying there, I'm making sure that this hasn't shifted. And so what we're going to do is, this here is going to have to wrap around this part of her. So we want this to wrap around and hold her ribs. That's what we want to do. So I'm going to hold these down. I'm going to have you scooch down towards the foot. Just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Perfect. Let's see. I'm going to wrap you up. So when I'm looking here, the ribs, the bottom of the ribs are right about here on this, and that's about where she should be. So what we'll do is we will, hold this down, and then firmly. Is that too much?
No, that's good.
Okay. So firmly, I wrapped her around her thoracic. Now, here for the bottom part, we want it to go. We want it to wrap around the top because it's going to hold her hips in place, and that's what's the other. That's the other point of contact, is we want to hold the hips. So you'll reach in, you'll feel the top of the pelvis. I'm going to have you lift your butt up a little bit, okay, and down. So that's going to come over the top. So we're going over the top, just like so. And that's nice and firm. So this is crisscrossing down that, across this way down, and this is crisscrossing down also. Okay? So next thing we do is we set up the belt. Now the belt is just like a lot of these kinds of belts that you've had, is that it wraps through the first two, comes back with the top one, and then we will pull it tight. Now we don't pull it completely tight. We just snug it up because it's going to pull down this way. It's going to pull down this way. And you can watch the video when we're done, okay?
Keep trying to
look. So I know, but you'll be able to see the video. So this here will come up. This clip comes up. We clip it in, and it holds like this. And so there's another metal ring here, and that's going to be where it's going to pull on the low back. So what we'll do is we'll say, okay, what I'm going to do is we're going to need your legs bent. So you're going to guide them. This comes up over this side. You come to the outside, and then the other one comes up on this side. Now you're going to have the legs spread, okay? Not a ton, but just enough, because if there's probably about there's probably about this much space in between these leg pieces, and it needs that space because if you're looking down here, and you don't need to look down here, but there's two pieces of strap that comes out, and it'll become very evident that you're going to need them to move freely. So what we'll do is we'll also turn the computer on here. So we're turning it on, and let's see your chart.
This is
Thank you. This is okay.
as the equation.
Yep. Yep. So most often we'll be doing the lumbar traction, so that's the one we're going to be covering today. There's a lot of different buttons here, and this is a touch screen. What you'll do is you'll hit lumbar traction, and it's the second one down on the right. Can I see that for a moment?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just getting her weight.
It's okay. So there is I'm going to cover this up. Now what you'll see is there's a DTS treatment sheet here. And before the practice member comes in, I will have already figured all this out. So what you'll do is you'll put your treatment number here, you'll put the date, and so she has a maximum pull of 83 pounds and a minimum pull of 23. So that's what we're going to set up. So the reason for what's that?
I have her information.
Okay. All right. So we're just gonna.
Okay.
You already did hers, so we can do it on her. Okay, perfect. All right. So what we'll do is Samantha's already figured out what Sam's is. So what we'll do is I hit the lumbar traction, which is the second one down on the right. It says lumbar traction, and then I'll want to edit it. So I hit edit, which is the top button on the right. So we want to do a few things. We want to do edit the maximum level, the minimum level, then we also want to do the time, and the time would be 30 minutes. So maximum level for our Sam is what?
50.
Okay. And then the minimum?
It's 20.
Okay. And then, so I hit those both. I hit the maximum, and then I edit it. You can move it up and down or use the numbers. Hit enter. Then the minimum, we stayed at 20. I entered that. And then you're going to hit the back arrow. And all that should be set. Now we want this time. We're going to hit the time down here and switch that to 30. Hit enter. And then the back arrow. Well, no. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So you're going to be on this here. So we want the time. There we go. So it should all be set. So another thing that you're going to want to do is, this is the kill switch. Okay. So we're going to do some instructions, and what this does is you hit the stop button, and this will slow this. It will take that from a pulling to just stopping it. Okay, but it doesn't do it automatic. It doesn't do it instantaneous. So what you'll do is you'll hand this to the person, and you'll say something like, "Okay, what we're going to do here is I'm going to give you this is the button. If you have a problem, if for some reason you have to get off this table, you'll just hit this button. Now this button, it doesn't shut off. It doesn't instantly do this, right? So if it's in the middle of a pull, you have to wait till it's all the way down. You don't want to just release yourself from this, because if you do, what's going to happen? It's going to jam you up, and you're not going to be real pleased with that. It's not going to be pleasant. So what you'll do is you'll have this, and so it'll shut off. Now it's also going to be important that, because there's going to be people coming and going, you have your cell phone on you. Okay, so you know our number, right? Okay, you have this on speed dial, right? Okay, so if you have a problem, you can always call us from here, and that will be your safety. And if for some reason you have a challenge, you need to get out or whatever, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter if you need to talk to us for anything. You just let us know. You can let us know that way. That's the best way. Okay. So we're coming back here. Now we have to hook it up. Now this is the cord. You just lay straight there, because you can watch the video. And you just hit the rope release, right? And it's going to bring it out. And then you let go of that. You let go of the button on here, and then it clicks in. You'll clip that on, then what you do, if I just hit the rope release again, that's gonna pull that in really quick and really hard, and it won't be pleasant. So you hold it, give some tension, not a ton, just hold it. I hit the rope release, and it will tighten it up. So what I do is I give this a pull. I think that was here, because that was, I think, yeah. So I gave that a pull, right? And so there's a little bit of tension on here. So that's where we are. So everything's locked up, and I'm gonna hit start, and it's ready to go. So it's beginning the traction. Now if you come in here, you can see this thing in here. I don't know if you can zoom in on here. But what you're going to see is that this will start to come up. You see that the tension is coming up, 7, 8, 9, right? It's going to go up to about 15 or 18. And then it's going to hold there for about 6 or 7 seconds. There we go. Okay, so 10 seconds it holds. And then it will just what it's doing is it's getting the practice member used to that tension. It's going to do that for 10. Now it's going to bump up to a little over 30. And it's going to continue doing that until it gets to the maximum. And so this is a weight game. We just sit there and wait.
Are you supposed to be lifting my hips?
We're going to talk about that. That's a good point. So as that's coming up, we're just waiting. So I'm going to wait till it gets a little farther. See, there's 1, 2, 3 tiers. So now it's coming up to the 3rd tier. So now I'm going to go ahead and walk towards the patient. So go ahead and back up. I'm going to walk towards the practice member. And so what she had said is, am I supposed to lift the hips? And so what we're doing at this point is, right now it's creating a lot more tension. If you see, there's a lot of tension on there, right? So but what we want to do is we want to take the slack out. So what I'm doing is I'm just gently pulling, and you can hear the person squeak, 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 squeak. I call it taking the slack out of the back. That way when we open up this and we have the pull, we know how far it's actually opening up those joints. So it's up here at the top, or it's coming up to the top now, to the apex. And so now during this time is when we want to really start doing pulling the, lifting the hips. And so we're just taking and that's about it. So that's all the slack out. So here now it's a waiting game again. We have another. It must be 45 seconds. So we have another 25 seconds at the top here. So once it hits the end of that time, it's going to go back down to the lowest, to that 20 pounds or whatever the minimum is. So it's going to go back down. So we have another 9, 8, 7, 6. So, and here we go. So at this point, it had one pull. It had one pull session. Now we're going to wait till this goes all the way down to 20 before we unlock that. Okay. So now it's down to 20 pounds, 21 pounds, and now it's safe to unlock that. So it shows unlock. We roll towards the unlock. So that's unlocked now. Okay, you'll hear a click, a clunk, and now it's starting to go back up. And what you'll see here is when she's pulling, you'll see the space here start to open up. You'll see the space opening up. You're at about a ½ an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch, and really we want it. It's coming up to an inch now. Really, when you see that open up, you want to see it open up approximately an inch or an inch and a half, almost 2 inches. And so the thing is I won't really know. See, if you just hear a scooch a little bit. If you didn't do that, you'd still hear a lot of scooching. We'd really know we wouldn't know if it was a good pull or not. Now, if we were really doing this, what I would do at this point. Now, I don't want my assistants doing this. I want you to come get me, let me know, and then I would increase the pressure. But at this point, what I would do is I'd go ahead and increase the maximum, and what you'll see is that actually pull open just a little bit more, and it did, about another 1/4 inch. So that would be a typical pull, and she's a smaller person, so 1 3/4 inches. I'm really happy with that. So it's gonna, and now it's kind of on automatic pilot. So then we check into the practice number and say, hey, everything feel all right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you're doing all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to head out now. I'm going to let you go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and turn the light off so that's not blaring in your eyes the whole time, all right? And so you can have a nice relaxation. I'll be checking on you probably about every 5 minutes. If you run into an emergency, again, hit that button, wait till it goes down to 0, and then call us right away, and we'll take you off this machine if there's something happens, if you need us. And you still have your phone on you, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm going to be checking on you in a few minutes, so anything you know, just know that I'm going to be back, all right?
Okay.
Now, it's very important that when we say we're going to check on them, that we what?
Check on.
Check on them. Don't forget about them. Set a timer up there every 5 minutes if you need to, right? So something to remind you, because sometimes we'll get busy. It's like, oh my gosh, it's been 25 minutes. I forgot all about Dorothy, okay? So we just need to make sure that we don't forget that. So once it gets to a point at the end of it, so say her 30 minutes are up, it's going to get to the top, and then it will start to decompress slowly down, that little cascading. It'll go down and it'll go down and it'll go down until it gets to 0. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stop it though at this point. I'm going to stop it. And so what's going to happen is it's going from 60 down to, and so it's going to be slowly. But what would happen if it ran its normal course is that if you watch here, it would go down that tier and then down that tier, and it wouldn't be repeating. It would just be going down. So it's right now it's at 32. It's at 30. Now the reason why it just doesn't shut off is, why do you think?
A little jam.
Because you go from his to, it slammed there's some sensitive tissues. People who are on here have a disc herniation or having some big challenges. So you don't want to be too drastic. You want to give the body a chance to accommodate that extra pressure again. So that's the reason why it goes so slow. So when you're back here, it can be, especially this last little bit, it can be a little brutal because it's 7, 6, still 6, 4, still 4. Sometimes to hurry it along a little bit, I kind of pull it like this and I hit the rope release, and then we're done. Okay? So there you go. So extracting the practice number. I hit the rope release, I gave it some slack, I undid this. Again, you hit that rope release, this thing can come up and hit you in the head. You don't want to do that. So grab a hold of that and then hit the rope release button, and it will allow that to go into the machine, and then you let go of the rope release and then you're good. So we will turn the machine off at this point. We'll go ahead and I'll take that from you. I'm going to set it up here.
Gotta lock the bed.
Yeah. And then you lock the bed. Why do you think it's important to lock the bed?
I don't like scooching.
Yeah, so when the person it's on a spring, but you don't want, if it's a heavier person, she goes to get up or he goes to get up, it might move on her or him. So we don't want to do that. You'll undo this. You'll undo the belt first.